Good evening, everyone, from Nashville. It is Monday, March 1st. I'm Charles Brown, Portfolio Manager with CB3 Financial. We are glad you're with us tonight. From COVID to U.S. politics to the world economy to clarity. This is CB3 Live and the Monday Market Mashup. You guys know we bring this to you every Monday night. If you are new to the program, we just ask you to click the button on the YouTube page, more than likely where you found this, and then also click the bell, and that way you'll be notified whenever we go live, usually on Thursdays, sometimes Mondays. But that way you're at least keeping up with what we're doing, and we want you to do that because we think we bring you valuable advice, okay? And education too. I think it's both, all right? So you'll also find us tweeting every day on Twitter, so be sure and subscribe or follow us there. And you'll also find us on Facebook and LinkedIn, where we have the most growing audience of all the platforms, actually. So today, J&J Johnson & Johnson Blockbuster and Eco Data powers on. It's just great to see the numbers that we're seeing here in the economy. But starting off in Corona America, Johnson & Johnson, great news, and we need that, okay? So there's 72,800,000 vaccinations year to date. Well, actually, not year to date, but I should say pandemic to date, right? Okay, only 1,500 deaths. We know that that's, 1,500 more than we want, of course, but the number continues to dwindle. I have more expanded specifics on this every Thursday night. Total U.S. deaths did eclipse 500,000 since the last show on Thursday night. But the reality is that we still have way more vaccinations than we have cases. And I expect that number to be 2 to 1 probably over the next 2 months. And that's also good data. As I just mentioned, the CDC on Saturday, February 27th, recommended Johnson & Johnson single shot COVID vaccine, okay? So obviously when the CDC reaches out and says, you guys can probably administer this, then the FDA gets involved, and the emergency use is going to be granted for 18 years and over. So it's not so much age specific. The most important thing is that, again, it can be for any age, following the footsteps of obviously the existing vaccinations by Pfizer and Moderna, which are now in wide usage. But the big difference here is that this third shot, which is amazing when you think that the pandemic is just a year old, we have 3 different discrete vaccines for this pandemic. And this is the first one to just require 1 dose. So it's simpler in that regard, and I'm encouraged. We'll have more on that Thursday night. In the U.S. economy, just a rocking day in the market. I love these Mondays when I can come to you and I don't have my tie loosened because I'm just worn out from Mondays are usually among the worst days of the week. In fact, historically, Mondays and Tuesdays are the weakest, with the latter days in the week stronger. But the Russell for the year up 15.2, and then the other 3 asset classes, NASDAQ, S&P, Dow, really about the same. The story this year is and has been the emergence of the small cap class, lagging behind for years, catching up last year in December to barely overtake the NASDAQ in the lead. And then basically this year just running away with it. And we like that. We have a lot of exposure to the Russell 2000 in our SG program and CG program, which you'll hear more about on Thursday, okay? So basically the stock market today was just quick about buying last week's dip. Last week was a down week, but motivated by these 3 factors. The S&P 500 50-day moving average, you guys know I'm a technical trader, so I watch the 50-day and the 20-day. And despite it being an ugly week, the S&P held on to its 50-day. Obviously, the FDA granting emergency use for J&J's one shot, which we just mentioned, and the House voting for the $1.9 trillion stimulus plan. It now goes to the Senate. I'll have more on that a little later in the program. AT&T, not AT&T, Apple, okay? Sorry about that. All 270 Apple stores are now reopened. For the first time in almost a year, March 13th, 2020, they started closing stores, and now they have reopened them. That's a great sign. That's Apple stating basically that we're going to let the pandemic run its course, and we're opening up for business everywhere. All our employees are back on the floor. And I'm certain they're taking proper precautions to keep their employees and customers safe. But this is a great sign for the U.S. economy. In economic indicators, as I mentioned in the thumbnail, which you guys see, just some rocking numbers this week. So household income, basically, priming the U.S. for stronger growth. So grew 10% in January alone, to this, with the second highest rise on record. And the record goes back about 40 years. So that's a positive. Like to see that a lot. February market manufacturing PMI, just a little bit stronger than expected. Again, we'll take any small gains we can during this pandemic. And construction spending. You guys know from watching the show that I very closely track the home construction industry in America because it is the top category for discretionary spending. The increase of 1.7% in January, obviously a little dated stat here, but still very strong. The key takeaway that gains in both private and public construction spending. That's a good thing, a really good thing. So S&P Global Ratings basically is saying, we understand we've had to downgrade some U.S. corporations during this time, especially those in industries that are really, really hard hit, like the airlines, like hotels, motels, casinos. And they still basically believe it's going to be till the end of 22 or in some cases 23 before these credit ratings come back. This further shows the split in various components of the U.S. economy. But I'm not concerned about this. We have enough sectors and industry groups that are performing well, some of them at all-time highs. And basically, this is a warning to investors that we still have to be careful. That's why we watch these global ratings on all stocks. But I'm not encouraged that it's going to be anytime sooner than what they're predicting here. But I also don't think that the market is expecting that, and that's why nothing happened today but straight up, okay? And straight up is definitely what we saw today in the market. ISM manufacturing has been above 50 now for quite some time. It's matching the August 2018 reading, highest reading since May 2004. Just another strong data piece here. February marking the 9th straight month. Again, all during a pandemic, and for most of that during the recession that followed after the March 23rd low. The key takeaway, all industry groups reported paying higher prices for raw materials. Now you might say, well, that sounds like we're driving up inflation. We need a little bit of inflation. We need to see that the economy has enough demand in it so that prices rise. When there is high demand, prices rise. You know how that works in a capitalist market, okay? So last Thursday night, I asked you guys what you want to learn about, and here's how it came out in the results. 18% wanted to hear how we choose or why we choose the stocks we do. Most of you, 65%, wanted to know when and how we decide to buy and sell. Not anybody interested in bond assets. Okay, well, we're not a huge bond house here at CB3 Financial. And I still want to know more about crypto. So what we're going to do, I'm going to have a crypto corner every time we go on the air. So Mondays and Thursdays, not just Thursdays now. I do have a brief answer for number B, or for letter B, I should say, that I'll discuss on Thursday night, even though you didn't want to hear about, answer C. Let's get these numbers right here, letters right. For letter C, you have to understand why we do and do not trade bonds. We do have some bonds in our portfolios, but not a lot of them. And it's important that you understand why we trade the ones that we do and why we don't trade them. But I clearly heard you that answer B, you want to understand why we make the decisions on buying and selling. I'm starting a new series on the March 18th show. That's our Thursday night show after our 1-year anniversary show, which is a week from this Thursday night. So you want to be here this Thursday. You want to definitely be here the next Thursday for our 1-year anniversary show. And then, of course, on the 18th, I'm going to start breaking down how we decide to buy and sell when. And when we decide to sell. Selling is much more difficult than buying, guys, just so you know. Almost anybody can buy, but knowing when to sell really is an important data there. And as I said, we'll keep you informed on the crypto. Here we are at the Crypto Corner for today. rough patch for Bitcoin. If you look back here to 2017, we just equaled that this last week, this downturn, and yet today, real big up day. So cryptos remain a volatile asset class. Candidly, I wish they didn't. I know that you guys want to know more about this and everybody wants to rush into it. Dan Lieb is the latest billionaire to basically say we need to explore this. He referenced Steve Jobs as he called for an openly engaging discussion while maintaining healthy skepticism. I'm not really sure what I think about that statement, but he is a big player in the world of finance. So when he gets interested, I have to pay attention. I haven't shown you this in a while. This is how I'm doing and how I'm allocated. So a lot of you have wondered, am I just in Bitcoin? Am I in other currencies? Here it is. Here's my current holdings at Kraken. And interestingly, I haven't ever shown you this on the next screen. It's the same holdings, but instead of showing you the change for the day, look at the percentage. So the Bitcoin dominance number is 62%. I'm at about 59% in Bitcoin, 12% Ethereum, 5% Litecoin, and then you can follow down the list there in case you just want to know why, and that maybe generates more questions from you as to why I allocate most of the resources toward the big two coins, Ether and Bitcoin, and how I make the decisions to get into smaller coins that are emerging. I do have a strategy beyond the scope of this presentation tonight, though. In politics, this is pretty much an eye-opener here. So I wouldn't have used this language, but what concerns me is the 9% here, and that's that the actual spending on COVID healthcare in this $1.9 trillion package, 9% is not a whole lot. So, both sides of Congress do this. The Republicans and the Democrats load what we call pork into bills because if you don't get your pork in there, then certain people just won't vote for it. Candidly, I'd almost wish there were a stalemate and less pork. But 9% is a ridiculously small amount of percentage for a 1.9, call it $2 trillion expenditure, okay? Again, you might have labeled this differently. If you're more on the left, you probably think some of these titles are not particularly kind, but the reality is nowhere near 100% or even 80 or even 50% is actually going towards COVID. Both parties do this, but right now this is a huge disservice to the American people, in my opinion. President Trump spoke yesterday, former President Trump, at the CPAP convention and indicated that there may be a Republican in office in 2024 should he decide to run. We don't know that he definitively said he was going to run, but it certainly looks like he's interested in that. And of course, that will be on the radar. It will affect the political climate in America for those in the Republican Party that either were or still are considering challenging him. So today's words of wisdom, the only difference between a tax man and a taxidermist is that the taxidermist leaves the skin on the corpse. I added that on the corpse. I really don't like taxes, guys. I only want to pay the minimal amount of taxes. I believe in small government, and it's only getting bigger. Frankly, it got bigger even during Donald Trump's administration, but the way we're headed right now, just in the first less than 100 days, it's going to be even more so with the Biden administration. Want to remind you guys, a week from Thursday night, special guest Lydia Thibodeau, CEO of Boston and Chicago Collegiate Nannies. Lydia has a really strong business and an interesting struggle that she shared with me and actually called me today to give me an update. They were able to finally place a $75,000 job for a nanny. Why is this interesting? Because she had a job offer to another candidate last week for $100,000 and they turned it down. Literally way more clients than there are nannies to service those clients. That's a great problem to have, except that it's not if you're in that industry. But I thought it would interest you guys here in an economy where some industries, many are just really, really struggling. She can barely keep up with the demand in hers. Join us for that anniversary edition on March 11th, and she'll be my special guest that night. So on Thursday, the J&J vaccine, as this develops, it's a developing story, as you can imagine, and then your questions answered. I mentioned that earlier. We will start answering the crypto questions that you answered and why we buy and sell, and that new series that I'll be starting after the anniversary issue on March 11. So March 18, we'll start probably an open-ended segment on why we at CB3 Financial do what we do. So reminding you again, guys, do subscribe to us. Tell your friends, okay? Tell your friends and family to join us Mondays and Thursdays. It's free education. You know, we've got a pretty strong track record. Even if you're not a client, we're glad you're here learning from us and watching what we do and being part of the team, okay? Thanks for being with us tonight, guys. Always enjoy it. This has been the Monday Market Mashup for Monday, March 1st. I'm Charles Brown, Portfolio Manager with CB3 Financial Group, where we don't just manage your assets, we become one of them. And from COVID to U.S. politics to the world economy to clarity, this is CB3 Live and the Monday Market Mashup.